And welcome to Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us. Just giving you a little example of what I put down on my podcast, audio podcast, Wendell's World in Sports. Here's what I need for you to do. I need for you to go to your favorite place where you listen to your podcast. I need for you to download. I need for you to subscribe. I need for you to follow, rate, review, and most importantly, enjoy the most unique, entertaining, thought-provoking sports talk podcast that you can listen to, Wendell's World in Sports. Would appreciate it. So for this, I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions about my Georgetown Hoyas. Just finish watching them get embarrassed and destroyed 92-64 against Marquette. It was embarrassing. The loss was predictable. You got to remember that Georgetown hadn't played basketball since December 18th. So they were off for that amount of time. So this is a situation where, hey, look, man, not just playing basketball games. Georgetown hadn't even practiced for the most part, while Marquette was out here playing basketball games, playing competitive basketball games, playing nationally ranked teams in their blowout victory over Providence a couple of days ago. So the loss to Marquette was not surprising. Now, the fact that they lost by 28 points, the fact that they were outscored by damn near plus 20 in the second half, some of the turnovers, some of the lackadaisical plays, some of the forced turnovers, some of the missed shots, some of the sloppy ball handling, some of the lack of defense and defensive awareness. Was it disappointing? Yes. Was it frustrating? Yes. Was it embarrassing? Yes. But a loss is a loss. No matter if you lose by 30, no matter if you lose by 1, a loss is a loss. And when your expectations for me for Georgetown is a situation where I think that Georgetown making the NIT this season with the talent that they have would be a accomplishment, really doesn't matter in terms of NCAA selection tournament and everything like that. It doesn't matter. This season, I want to see Georgetown make the NIT, and this season, I want to see growth and improvement from some of our young players. It was in the nonsense, the rubble, which was the wreckage of this 92-64 loss to Marquette. It was great to see Kobe Clark out there. Wasn't in basketball shape. Didn't look in basketball shape. After a few minutes, he was winded, but it was good to see him out there. Let's get that process started. Georgetown came into this game without Don Carey. Georgetown didn't get anything from Ryan Batombo. I'm recording this right now after watching the game, so I don't know what the status on why Ryan Batombo didn't play. Jordan Riley is going to be out for an extended amount of time because of a shoulder injury. So Timothy Ego-Efe was still out with a broken hand. So this is a situation where, Georgetown is going to struggle. They're going to struggle. And tonight's outcome in terms of losing is concerned, and I always want Georgetown to win. I want Georgetown to win all their games. I want Georgetown to do to Marquette what Marquette did to Georgetown. I want Georgetown to do to every single team that they play what Marquette did to us tonight. But that's unrealistic, and that's not going to happen. So if that's going to happen, I don't give a damn if you're at Duke. I don't give a damn if you're at Gonzaga. I don't give a damn if you're at Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA. Don't give a damn. It's not going to happen. So frustrating night for Georgetown, but again, coming off the 80-73 loss on December 18th to TCU, Aminu Muhammad scored 21 points, grabbed 11 rebounds. Caden Rice had 14 points. Don Carey had 12 points. You saw the physicality in that game in terms of Ryan Batombo and Malcolm Wilson not being able to match up physically against some pretty solid physical interior players from TCU against Marquette, where they're long, they're big, they're lanky, they're athletic. And you're playing with Malcolm Wilson, who did his best, but, he's just not athletic enough and he's not physical enough. Ryan Batombo wasn't in the game. I'm not saying that would have erased a 28-point loss, but this would have been a really good experience for Ryan Batombo to play in, to get beat up, to get out physicaled, and to see what Big East basketball is all about, and see where he needs to get better and see where he needs to improve and get that experience in terms of dealing with the physicality that's going to come his way when you play teams such as Seton Hall, when you play teams such as Villanova, when you play teams such as UConn. Marquette kind of reminds me of Utah in terms of that long, athletic, jumping, rim running, dunking, rim shot protecting type of team that they played tonight in Marquette. It's just that UConn is about 3 or 4 times better. I should say 3 or 4 times, but they're much better as a squad than Marquette is. So this would have been a pretty good awakening for some of the freshmen that we have on Georgetown, who sometimes when I see them playing, especially this is with Aminu Muhammad playing, it seems to me that these guys still play like they're in high school. Especially Muhammad, who goes in, he spins, he's got great moves, he's got good footwork, he's got all those things, but you're not playing against 6'2" white guys who can't run or jump in high school anymore. I mean, these guys are long, these guys are lanky, and despite being the physical specimen that Aminu is for being just 18, 19 years old and being a freshman in college, he's having trouble finishing at the rim. Why? Because throughout his entire basketball playing career, he's never played against this type of size. He's never played against this type of length. He's never played against this type of physicality. Jalen Billingsley, the same thing. He hasn't played against this type of physicalness and this type of talent. Tyler Beard, he hasn't played against. So these guys are still trying to acclimate themselves from playing in high school or playing a prep school, if you're speaking about Beard, and then making that transition to college basketball. Ryan Mutombo. Now we see the fact that he needs to pronounce his strength. His lack of athleticism as an 18-year-old freshman is showing. When he was playing down there in Atlanta, and the biggest guy that he was going against was 6'4" and 6'5", and he could just turn around and shoot around him and shoot over him, well, that's not going to happen anymore. That's not happening when you're going to be playing Connecticut. That's not going to be happening when you're playing Providence. Hell, that's not going to be happening when you play UMBC or Howard. So these guys right now are learning the college games, and they're taking their lumps and they're taking their bumps. And when you're relying on freshmen, like Coach Ewing is, you're going to run into games like this. When you have Dante Harris, who's just a sophomore, when you have Colin Holloway, who's just a sophomore, a returning still out of shape but getting back into shape, hopefully Colby Clark, when you have the inexperience of a Malcolm Wilson who hadn't played in 3 years, when you have the inexperience of a Timothy Ego F.A. who's still in a raw project type of mode, and he's been out now because of a broken hand, when you have Jordan Riley, who's just used to dunking over everybody because he was the most athletic cat on the dance floor, on the gym floor, then these are some of the growing pains that these guys are going to go through. So yes, the beatdown that you saw tonight against the Marquette Warriors, guess what? It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. So get used to it. It has nothing to do with coaching. It has nothing to do with game preparation. It has nothing to do with in-game adjustments. Connecticut, the first time we played Connecticut, we are going to get our asses kicked. Because Connecticut is like Marquette times 2 in terms of their athleticism, in terms of the type of physical specimens that they have on that team that Dan Hurley has recruited. We're going to get our ass kicked because the team is not used to seeing that type of physicality, to seeing that type of length and athleticism. They're just not. And after, again, the game against Marquette or the game we had against TCU, wake-up call for Malcolm Wilson, wake-up call for Ryan Mutombo. And then after 18 days, or the last time that we played was December 18th, and now this is January 7th, and we're going to be thrown into the fire like this, man, well, how great would it have been? We needed that. We needed a Howard. We needed a St. Leo. We needed a UMBC. We needed that level of competition. We needed a low-level squad to play tonight, to really get our sea legs back, to really work on some things. You threw us in there against Marquette. Of course we're going to look bad. But it is what it is, man. And that's what the Big East basketball season is all about in terms of the conference play. You're going to get blowouts like this. Hell, Providence just got their asses whooped by Marquette. Villanova's had some disappointing losses this season. I mean, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, what's going to be happening here? It happens. It happens. So for those who want to sit there and bag on Patrick Ewing that he can't coach, because we go through this minutia and we go through this nonsense every time Georgetown loses a basketball game. Patrick Ewing can't coach. Patrick Ewing can't recruit. Patrick Ewing doesn't know how to do anything. Patrick Ewing needs to be fired. Patrick Ewing was only hired because John Thompson Jr. told him to hire him. All of this nonsense, all of this bullshit, all of this speaking stuff about the Georgetown Hoyas basketball program. So far, Coach Ewing, in his 5th year, what did you want? What were people wanting from Patrick Ewing as coach of the basketball program coming into his 5th year? What were you expecting? Now, I know people are going to say we should have been in the NCAA tournament by now. Okay, let's take a look. The first year that Patrick Ewing got hired, that team was a train wreck. That team was an absolute train wreck in terms of the amount of talent that they had. Their best point guard, their best recruit, Tremont Waters, transferred because after JT3 got fired, he decommitted from the squad. So Patrick Ewing was coming into the Georgetown Hoyas basketball program with very little talent. No talent at all when you're speaking about trying to compete for an NCAA tournament berth or an NIT bid. The expectations were low for Patrick Ewing. No one was sitting up there. I don't give a damn how much your fandom was for Georgetown and still is for Georgetown Hoya basketball. Georgetown, none of you guys expected Georgetown. None of you guys were expecting Georgetown to make the NCAA tournament the first year. And I think in that season, Patrick Ewing did a fine job. He wasn't coach of the year. He wasn't coach of the universe. He wasn't a Hall of Fame coach. He did a good job. Learning on the job, just like everybody. He did a fine job. Second year, he goes out. He gets Matt McClung. He goes out and gets James Akinjo. He goes out and gets Josh LeBlanc. All three of those guys make the Big East all-freshman team. James Akinjo wins the Big East Freshman of the Year. They make the NIT at 15 and 19. They go ahead that season also and secure a transfer from Omar Yurtseven. So you're thinking, man, the all-freshman backcourt, it was Ewing getting used to playing with young guys, Ewing getting used to having the freshmen make freshman mistakes because they're young, Ewing trying to get that backcourt of McKinjo, Matt McClung, James McKinjo, the mesh, all of this stuff. In terms, it was a learning process, but the build was there. The first year was all about getting the feet wet for Coach Ewing as a coach, being on the college level. Second year was really to start building the program in earnest. So he went out, he got McKinjo, he got Josh LeBlanc. Matt McClung was a guy in Gate City who was a 3-star recruit in the 200s who wound up being on the all-Big East freshman team. James Akinjo was a guy who was ranked, I believe, 91 on the ESPN in terms of the top high school basketball players. He made Big East Freshman of the Year. That same freshman class that Javon Quinterly of Villanova, who was a 5-star recruit, he transferred because he wasn't getting any time, and now he's doing some things at Alabama. But James Akinjo made the Big East Freshman of the Year. Josh LeBlanc, who was somewhere ranked in the 100s and a 4-star recruit out of Louisiana, he makes the all-freshman team. So there's some things going on. There's some things building with the Georgetown Hoya basketball program. And despite the fact that they had ups and downs in that season, they had a bad loss at DePaul, they had bad loss in the tournament against Seton Hall and Miles Powell dropping dimes and buckets of everything on the team, Georgetown was in NCAA consideration for a lot of that season. The second year that Coach Ewing was coaching that team. The third year was supposed to be the year that they got things going. The third year, I think even the most, you were expecting, this was the year that Patrick Ewing was supposed to be making the NCAA tournament, right? This was the year where you said, okay, McKinjo coming, LeBlanc, or Yurtseven, Pickett, Blair, all of these guys coming in. You know, we picked up Byron Gardner. We picked up Galen Alexander. You know, we have a stellar freshman class or a stellar recruiting class coming after the 3 freshmen who made the all-freshman team. You had Yurtseven, who was a 4-star recruit, transferred from North Carolina State. This was supposed to be the team that was going to get it done. And what happens? The nonsense that happened with James Akinjo, what happened with Josh LeBlanc, what happened with Galen Alexander, and what happened with Byron Gardner. They're gone. So now most of the season, Georgetown is playing with 5 guys, 6 guys, 7 guys. Then all of a sudden, Matt McClung against American hurts his knee. He misses games. Omar Yurtseven, he twists his ankle. He's missing an inordinate amount of games. So now Georgetown is basically playing with 5 guys, basically playing with 5.5 guys. And what did they do? They still go to Butler and whip their ass without McClung and without Yurtseven. And they're still in NCAA tournament consideration before basically they just ran out of gas because you can't play 5 guys 40 minutes. When you're up there playing Jacob Mosley and Javon Blair, emerges as someone who could be counted on for 40 minutes, and Jamarco Pickett and such. That team basically ran out of gas, and it really wouldn't have made any difference because COVID hit that year, which means that the season didn't go on after they blew that first round game against St. John's in the Big East tournament. So fourth year, they start over again. Ewing is starting over again. What happens after a slow start? They make the NCAA tournament. Lose to Colorado, but they made the NCAA tournament. They won the Big East Conference tournament championship. So everything is good and all well and done. Overall, if you take a look at what Ewing has done, we know one thing. In fact, we know two things. At least I know two things. At least I believe I know two things. That Patrick Ewing can coach. Patrick Ewing can develop players. Now, the question that I have for Patrick Ewing moving forward is, can Patrick Ewing build a basketball program? In today's age of NIL, in today's age of the lax transfer portal, can Ewing build some type of consistency? Because continuing to rebuild, start over, yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem. That's one of the problems, or that's one of the concerns I have about Patrick Ewing in terms of what's going to be happening after this year, win, lose, or draw. What's going to be happening with Muhammad? What's going to be happening with some of these freshmen? What's going to be happening with Jordan Riley? Because now you take a look at the situation, especially after what happened with Qudus Wahab, where he made that foolish decision to move to Maryland or to transfer to Maryland. You're never safe. Do you feel safe with anything in terms of what's happening with the Georgetown basketball program concerning its players? Because it's almost Qudus set the precedent in terms of sometimes there's just nothing that you can do. There was nothing that Ewing could have done any better to keep Qudus Wahab on the team. Nothing. He spoke glowingly of him. He featured him in the offense. He gave him plenty of touches. You saw the improvement from Qudus from his freshman year to his sophomore year. He talked about how he could be one of the best centers who ever came across the Georgetown basketball team. He did everything humanly possible, and yet his pimp as an advisor thought that he needed to expand his game by going to Maryland. Well, right now, Qudus is averaging about 20-something minutes a game, and he's only averaging about 10 points and 7 rebounds. Where this season, he could have easily been averaging around 17, 18 points and 10 and 11 rebounds, averaging about 32 to 35 minutes, depending upon foul trouble in other situations. So good job, Q. Good job. You and your handlers, really good job. But my point is, after that, it just showed me that, man, it doesn't matter what you do. If a kid is going to leave, he's going to leave. And sometimes it's not the fault of the coach. Sometimes it's not the fault of the program. There's nothing that Ewing could have done in this situation. So regardless of how glowingly and regardless of how many isolations and regardless of how much freedom that Ewing has given Aminu Muhammad, we don't know. We don't know. Muhammad does not need to be going to the NBA after this season. Does not. He needs to work on his jump shot. He needs to work on his pull-up game. He needs to work on his mid-range game. There's a lot of things that Aminu could work on that Coach Ewing can get him to in terms of improving on a tremendous level that would get him ready to be a lottery pick in another year or two for the NBA. But we know that. Most reasonable people should know that. Does Aminu and his handlers know that? And his advisors know that? And his guardians know that? So on the surface, I'm excited about where the young cats are going. As I mentioned before, the fact that we got our asses whooped tonight, it was good to see Kobe Clark get them running. It was good to see Colin Holloway get some time and have the responsibility that he had in terms of the offensive end of the floor. It's good to see that for the maturation of the team moving forward. But it's a shaky proposition in the world of college basketball right now. So we're off after this Marquette defeat. We need to lick our wounds, and they're back on Thursday at home against Butler, which will be probably played in front of like 3,000 or 4,000 people. But it's tough, man, because after that, January 16th, they're on the road against St. John's. They've never played well against St. John's on the road. Then January 20th, they're away at Providence. Then January 22nd, at home against Villanova. And then the 25th, which is a Tuesday, they're going to be playing against Connecticut. Those 3 games right there against Providence, Villanova, and Connecticut. I'm telling you, we're going to get our asses whooped. One of these 3 games is going to be embarrassing. Don't be surprised if we lose all 3 of these games. It's just the way it goes. But it has nothing to do in terms of Ewing can't get it done as a coach. Ewing needs to be fired. Tell me a coach right now, with the team that we have and the injuries that we sustained so far this season, with the predicament, with the obstacles, with everything that's been put in front of us, name me a coach with the talent level that we have right now and everything that was put in front of us that would be doing better much better than Coach Ewing. Yeah, you can bring in your Bill Selfs and you can bring in your Mike Krzyzewskis and you can bring in all those type of guys. Yeah, they would probably be better than 6-6. But I tell you one thing, they wouldn't be 12-0. They wouldn't be 10-2. They wouldn't be 8-4. I know that for sure. I don't give a damn. You're starting Timothy Ego F.A. at center. You ain't going 12-0. And he gets injured. You ain't going 12-0 with that squad. Lost to Davidson starting off the season. Came back, won a couple of games. Then they had that ugly performance out in California. Came back, won a couple of more games. Had that this terrible offensive performance against South Carolina. This team is gelling. This team is moving. This team needs to get better. This team will get better. I'm not predicting that they're going to be doing something that they did last season, but I'm interested to see the next couple of games in the next few weeks and such. Which player on this team is going to give us the Chudier Bile? If you remember, before the COVID break last season, Chudier Bile looked like he had never played a game of basketball before. That man looked terrible. And he wound up at the end of the season being one of our most, if not the most important player on our team, offensively and defensively. Which player for Georgetown is going to emerge after this hiatus and be that guy? We know Aminu is already there. I think Caden Rice is too one-dimensional to really make that jump. I mean, the only thing that we can ask for from Caden Rice is to play a little bit better defense and make a couple of more three-point shots and maybe kind of tone down on the ridiculous three-point shot attempts. Talk about green light. He has the deep green light with some of the shots that he takes. Don Carey, he is who he is. As I mentioned before, Jordan Riley is not playing. Which guy on this team are you looking for in the second half of the season to make a huge improvement or to really be a much better player moving forward this season? My candidates are going to be Colin Holloway, Ryan Mutombo, if he's going to play. I don't know why he didn't play tonight, but Colin Holloway, Ryan Mutombo. I think that Dante Harris is going to continue to grow. I think Tyler Beard is going to be a guy who's going to be relied on for 10, 12 minutes. I think that the backcourt of Dante Harris and Tyler Beard are going to be featured more often. Ewing tried everything tonight. He tried small ball. Well, you couldn't try big ball because Mutombo and Ego F.A. weren't playing. But he had Colin Holloway at the 5 tonight, guarding Justin Lewis. I mean, that wasn't going to work. But what else was he going to do? Who else was he going to put in there? Jaden Billingsley wasn't going to do much better. So, the state of Georgetown basketball, it's in flux, man. It's moving. It's in flux. So, I'm still going to have faith. That's my team, man. I don't give a damn if they lose every game by 50. I'm still going to love my Georgetown Hoyas. Unconditional love, baby. But, you have to be realistic on how our thing is going. But coming into the season, what were your expectations for this team? Well, what did you expect them to be? You really didn't expect Georgetown to make the NCAA tournament, did you? With the squad that they had, with the program that they had, you could sit there and say Dante Harris makes that leap from being Big East tournament player of the tournament to all of a sudden being one of the better guards in the Big East. Caden Rice becomes one of the best three-point and long-range shooters. Timothy Ego F.A. makes the jump to where he's staying out of foul trouble and contributing to give you 11 points and 8 rebounds in 24 minutes. Ryan Mutombo surprises. Jordan Riley comes out and does some work. We could do all this stuff. Don Carey becomes one of the better defenders and outside shooters in the league, provides some experience, provides some leadership. We can do all that. Colin Holloway makes that jump. Kobe Clark makes that jump to where there can be contributors. You can talk about glass half full for every situation possible. Do you still think that Georgetown's going to be finishing in the top 5 or 6 in the Big East, even if everything that I just mentioned went to fruition? And it still might, because this is the first game of the Big East tournament, of the Big East schedule. So there's still time for growth. There's still time for improvement. As I mentioned before, just one game in. So even if all of those things happen, where would you expect Georgetown to be? So it's a game where, put some faith in Coach Ewing and let's see what happens moving forward. And before we start yelling and screaming about he sucks as a coach and he needs to go and Georgetown's never going to do anything and Georgetown's never going to get anywhere, and the only reason why he got the job was because John Thompson Jr. did him a favor before he passed and all this nonsense. Before we start going into all of this nonsense, before we start going into all of this stuff, let's give Georgetown some time to see what happens moving on in the Big East season. Wendell's World in Sports, thank you very much for listening. Again, you can check out my podcast, Wendell's World in Sports, WENDELL'S World in Sports. Anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you download, you rate, you review, you subscribe, you follow, and most importantly, enjoy again the most unique, entertaining podcast that you can listen to. Georgetown forever, Georgetown for life, Hoyas Saxa, believe in Pat. Patrick Ewing will get it done. I believe in that. Wendell Wallace, Wendell's World in Sports. See you on when we play again. Yeah, see you on Thursday. Butler, at home. Georgetown, fellas. Let's get it done.